Probably make videos do a bunch so much better. If you listen, there's a way to go viral. It's the puppies. Oh, the puppies.
Hi, my name's Nikki Rohde, and I'm coming to you from my house in Payson, Arizona, USA. I've been an interpretive naturalist for over 30 years and an interpretive trainer for almost 10. Since 2020, I've been creating content on YouTube and I've been training interpretation online over Zoom. I call my brand Personal Virtual Interpretation. I believe we can reach virtual audiences with the skills from personal interpretation. But I've learned that delivering online programs isn't simply replacing the in-person experience with a recorded one. Audiences actually respond differently to online programs. This session will explore ways that we can put the personal aspect of personal interpretation into a virtual setting for meaningful and engaging programs. Stick with me. I teach tour guides. Actually, I don't just teach tour guides. I teach park rangers and museum educators, classroom teachers of all grades, environmental educators, nurses, insurance agents, HR and sales floor staff, members of the clergy, social media influencers, and content creators. I've taught a basketball coach, a lawyer, Dolly Madison, and I've even taught a few mermaids and mermen. Become a certified interpretive guide with me to make memorable and meaningful connections. And while we're here, I get a chance to introduce you to my brand, Personal Virtual Interpretation. Here's my website. Best way to connect with me is to get to this main page, personalvirtualinterpretation.com, and to scroll down to the bottom for the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter, and then you get to hear all the great stuff that's coming out. I've got some upcoming classes that are going to start taking place. This is where I'm going to be hosting the personal virtual interpretation courses that are going to build off the stuff that we're learning today. So today we're going to talk a lot about engagement strategies, but there's so much more to learn. I'm so excited to bring this info to you. Let's get going. Virtual interpretation brings programs to those who cannot be there in person. Additionally, virtual interpretation allows for experiences that are not even available to in-person audiences. So, what's in this session today? We're going to talk about the difference between personal interpretation and pre-recorded virtual interpretation. We're going to talk about the audience behaviors between those two settings. We're going to talk about how to be virtually anywhere and anywhen, which is something allowed by virtual programming, and we're going to reach beyond the screen simply by being personal in our virtual programs. So let's talk about the differences between these two settings. First of all, when I'm talking about in-person programming, here's a great example here. That's when your audience is there with you in real time. So we're sharing the same space, we're there at the same time, and that is the most interaction we can have with the guests. So here's a great example of an interpreter leading a planned program. That interpreter has decided the route, the information they're going to share, the engagement strategies, and the audience can interact, especially when the interpreter has left it open maybe for questions. Here's another example. Here's a touch table. So again, the interpreter has decided which activities to bring and the info to bring, but is much less formal. The guest is directing the experience, and the interpreter might, again, ask some questions, but it's very, very interactive, even more so than a planned program. Here's another example of in-person programming, and that's roving interpretation. So the interpreter is wearing a costume, or they might have a prop, and it's fully interactive. It's the most informal interpretive experience that's really out there, and it's very much directed by the guest. So the guest is really leading the interaction. Now let's talk about pretty much the exact opposite of an in-person program. We're going to talk about a pre-recorded program. So these are the videos you find on YouTube. What the interpreter has done was created the entire program and delivered that program knowing that there's no audience there to interact with. There's a gap of time between when that delivery is finished and when the audience sees it. So the interpreter in the meanwhile is editing and posting, and then eventually it goes live on YouTube and the audience can then watch it. So we've seen these many, many times on YouTube. You see the YouTube moniker up on the top there, top left, and at the bottom we see the transcript, we see the timeline, we see the title and information about who else has watched the video, and some other bits of information. All right, to be able to upload a video onto YouTube, you have to have a YouTube channel. YouTube channels are free. Your agency probably has one. If you're striking out on your own, they're easy enough to create. And you can really customize this channel to tell people more about it, to put branding on your videos that are coming out. But your channel is really a storing house, and you get to place all your videos on there. You can actually have some private, some listed, some public, right? And then there's also these wonderful things called playlists over here that you can group your videos by topic or as a series. And when you go to channels, this is a great way for your fans to watch more of the content that you have. Once your YouTube video is uploaded, you can share it across social media platforms. This is a great way to get your fans seeing what you're doing. Also, once your video is up on YouTube, you have the chance to share it on your webpage. Also, you can embed it on your webpage. So we know that our visitors are coming to our website to check it out, to find out what the site's all about, opening times, what the amenities are, all that great stuff, right? So when they see a video on your page, they can also learn a little bit more. Is this place accessible to me? What's the weather like? What are people wearing at this time of year? Is this a place that I was at 20 years ago? You know, these are all questions that people might have before they come to visit you. But this is also a great way to connect your place or your topic to people who will never come to visit you either. So whether it's on social media or directly on YouTube or through your website, here's this opportunity to meet people who know they probably won't ever come, or maybe they've never heard of it before, and maybe after watching your video they want to. And this one's the classic when we have an interpretive video, is to share it at the Nature Center or Visitor Center Theater. This still does go on. This is a great way for people who have come to your site to get kind of a lowdown on the site. A little bit of back history, seeing a little bit of the amenities, maybe finding out what are the top things to watch, you know, getting an overview of the park, but they have to arrive to be there. Most of us by now, we still have a theater. Often those videos are now playing on the website, and maybe the theater is used for special events. And shameless plug, this is a great time to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Personal Virtual Interpretation, and to hit the like button on this video. Hopefully share it with other interpreters that you know. We're going to come out with some great videos, deep dives on more of this subject, building more on how to do virtual programs. So you're going to find it here first.
So put yourself as the audience for just a moment. What behaviors do you tend to have while you're watching an in-person program compared to what type of behaviors do you have while you're watching a virtual program? Let's take a look at some of the differences.
So let's talk about those in-person programs first. We're most familiar with these, right? So your audiences at an in-person program will tend to stay with you. Even if they're not all that into the topic, they'll tend to stick around anyway. They might even wind up being late for dinner or even late for the plane, because for many people, leaving during the middle of your experience is impolite. So most of us will stick with the interpreter, even if we're not all that interested, even if it runs long. They're also quite focused on the program. One of the things we've talked about in interpretation is that we interpret what's around us, what people can sense, what people can engage in, right? So while they're listening to you speak, they're also looking around at the beautiful landscape. They are maybe reading interpretive signs that they're following. They're watching the live animal go by, but they're focused on the program. Maybe not on every little word that you're saying, but on the experience. They're focused on it. Because they're in an immersive environment for this program, they expect that the program is going to be a little bit slower, but it's also going to have a lot of sensory engagement, and they have the time to enjoy that. So while they're enjoying the program, they can smell the salty air. They might be able to taste some of the agave liquid that was brought out. They might even be able to touch some of the skulls that you bring out or the artifacts that you bring out. So that's part of the experience. Because of that, there's a lot of interaction that happens in in-person programs because you're there in real time. So the interpreter can ask questions of the guests and they can answer back long or short answers or even just nods or raising their hands, right? And the interpreter sees that. There's also a chance for the audience to stop the program, ask a question. We might have demos that people can participate in or other activities that people can participate in. And if nothing else, we're at least seeing the interpreters, we're at least seeing body language and where people are interested in and that they're smiling or responding back to us. Because of all this, because of the interaction that's available, the sensory experience, there's a social aspect to being at an in-person program, and that's part of the fun of it. People know that they're going to bump elbows kind of awkwardly with other people in the room, but they could become friends with that new person. They could learn more from hearing from another audience member's perspective. They could find people that are a lot like them. So that social aspect is all part of it. That's part of the fun. Now let's talk about audience behaviors at pre-recorded programs. If you haven't created a pre-recorded program yet, put yourself in the audience shoes and think about what you are like when you watch a video on YouTube. Audiences are likely to drop off. In fact, they readily drop off. Even if they're really into the program, even if they're really into the interpreter, they will probably readily drop off. In fact, they'll often drop off to go do something meaningless, like watch a different cat video, because TV can take your mind off stuff, right? That might be the idea. Or they might even all of a sudden go, oh, I've got chores and stuff I've got to do, because they've been surfing the web for other reasons. And that's why they're kind of ready to drop off. So you could be wonderfully engaging and they'll still leave you like that. Now, why do they do that? Why do they readily drop off? Well, because they're multitasking, and they've probably been multitasking before they find your YouTube video. So they're already doing other stuff online. They might be searching your social media page and other social media pages. They might be checking out your website and got caught up on the video, and what all they wanted to know was the opening dates and times, right? So they're already multitasking. But they also have these wonderful bursts of intense focus. So when something interesting happens on the screen, or when they hear something that they wanted that catches their ear, they're likely, or catches their ear or catches their eye, right? They're likely to all of a sudden refocus and intensely focus. The cool thing about pre-recorded videos that you can't do in person is that you can rewind what happened and see it again, listen to it again. Now, because we're multitasking, people who create YouTube videos are trying to catch our eye and catch our ear. So what we've got is a tendency for those videos to be fast, a little more flashy. And that's what we're coming to more and more expect. So there's often scene changes, there's things that catch our eye, and there might be interesting language that catches our ear, but we're starting to expect that too. And what we find is that videos who are a little slower, we might be tapping our foot or watching them at double speed. Now, here's the big difference between audience behaviors in in-person programs and pre-recorded programs, is that in pre-recorded programs, there's no opportunity for the audience to interact and be heard by the interpreter. So there's no real-time interaction. Now, there's lots of things we can do to make up for it, which we're going to talk about next. But there isn't this opportunity for the interpreter to ask a question and hear the answer back from the guests. There's not an opportunity for the guest to all of a sudden come up with a question, ask it, and the interpreter to come right back to us. We can ask people to put things in the comment section. We can ask them to give us feedback by subscribing and liking, or even going to a QR code and going to the next adventure, the next online spot, right? And we can record any of those things that are happening. But there's not that interaction there. So we get we get like a 1 to 10% return on investment for that. Now that's pretty low, but we can work with that. We can work with that. All of that stuff, fast and flashy. There's not this real-time interaction. There's this intense focus. All of that has become a norm for us online. So when we're watching pre-recorded programs, that online aspect is part of the experience for good and bad. And there's both in there. But we can take advantage of some of those online opportunities and embed them in our pre-recorded in programs that we can't do in person. So I am not saying that one way is better than the other and some of these behaviors are better than others. There's positives and negatives in both of these. We're going to explore some more in just a moment.
So, what do you think? Does this seem true for the most part? What additional behaviors can you think of? Do different age groups respond differently? Pause the video for a moment here and add some of your thoughts in the comments below. I'll wait. So knowing this, how can we lean into these behaviors for virtual programs? What can we offer in virtual programs that are not even available to in-person audiences? Let's take a look.
You might want to write these down. We'll start with going to multiple locations. At an in-person program, going to multiple locations might not be cost-effective or in the schedule, but you can do this in pre-recorded programs. You can also play with time by speeding it up to record experiences like natural phenomenon that take too long to be included otherwise. Or slow down action for dramatic effect, or to showcase specific behavior such as the gait of a running dog. Marker. You can put yourself or a character virtually anywhere. You can do this simply to be personal, like when I'm doing my slides, or for a bit of visual fun.
Go, Pat, go! Go, Pat, go!
Since your audience is already online, it's cool in pre-recorded programs to connect them to other online experiences. You can show the audience a website to connect them with your brand. You can give a how-to demonstration or walkthrough of a citizen science app. Including a QR code instead of a link can connect your audiences to further resources with just one click. In comparison, encouraging the use of typing or Googling on a smartphone during an in-person experience, and you'll probably lose your audience to the phone and all the other things they want to do, like checking their next text message or learning more information and then going on to another site and another site and another site. You can also add in eye candy footage that is supplemental to the main visuals, like B-roll or snaps. Include words and graphics on the screen, especially words or names that might be misheard, misspelled, or uncommon. Add a little ear candy, like pauses, or laughter, or an odd sound. Ear candy will get the audience re-engaged, and then follow up with some eye candy. And hey, since you're pre-recording this, go ahead and record a few tries. Use the best ones, but don't hurt yourself. We are our own worst critics. Find ways that you can make this process of creating a pre-recorded interpretive experience more enjoyable for yourself and for the audience.
Ah, that segment took forever to do.
I wanted to take a minute to introduce another brand that I'm associated with. I've already talked about personal virtual interpretation. That's my personal interpretive training brand. But I'm also involved in Message Mindset, which is a group of 4 of us interpretive trainers that came together to promote each other's courses and to put out some new courses. So here's our main page. This has been a lot of fun for us to create. I'm just going to walk you through some of the options that we have here. The main thing that we're doing is a learning hub. So we are all certified interpretive guide trainers. So that's kind of our bread and butter. You'll see our upcoming classes here, whether they're on Zoom or in person. And then the other thing that we're really excited about is asynchronous courses are being built right now. So that's learning on your own. And over the next couple months, we'll start to see those pop in. And the other thing that we're excited about as well is we do some live web events in addition to our classes. We're also doing short deep dives. So we do a free monthly skills boost clinic. Our upcoming one at the end of August is connecting AI with interpretation. You might recognize some of these faces out there. And every month is going to be a different subject. We've been doing this for 4 or 5 months now, and it's becoming really popular. We're really excited about these courses. So how do you get in touch with us on Message Mindset? One of the easiest ways is when you scroll down on any of our pages, you'll see if you subscribe to our newsletter. That is the best way to get to know us, for sure. We also have a YouTube channel, and that's at Message Mindset. Pretty cool stuff. I hope you will connect with us and learn more.
In addition to the fast and flashy expectations that audiences have for videos, we can replicate the positives of the personal experience by using engagement strategies we're already familiar with. Let's take a look at those. One is to make sure you're creating thought-provoking content. Look for, in your storytelling, look for the contrasts. Look for the points of conflict. It doesn't need to be drama. We're not talking soap operas here. Just what were the differences of opinion? People love hearing how life's battles, whether they're little teeny battles or huge battles, how they were solved. So we're going to talk in stories, but also make sure that you're looking for and emphasizing those conflicts and those contrasts so that it creates thought-provoking content. If it's thought-provoking, it's also talk-provoking. You want to strive for some back talk in your programs. And what do I mean by that? Come on, catch the ball. Yeah. Okay. So sports fans have been back talking to the TV for ages, right? So that's one way to do it for sure, is to provoke enough of a response, but that can be a negative response also. It doesn't have to be. What about a cute, fun response? My kids loved watching Blue's Clues. Steve would ask, "Where's Paprika?" And my kids would be yelling out, "Behind you, behind you." And they were, talking into the screen and being part of it. You don't have to be a little kid to enjoy that kind of stuff. It's still fun. Another way to be more personable in our virtual programs is to find the common ground. This has several benefits. I'm not talking about becoming so vague that your content and approach are everything to everybody. That would make your interpretive program sterile and lifeless. What I'm talking about is calling our audiences in. Use unifying programs like we, us, and our. Finding common ground will also help you find the key words of your message, for sure. But you'll also want to use common ground language in your written description and title. Audiences are looking for our programs. Let's make it easier to find us by using terms that our audiences use. The next one is really common to us as interpreters, to make the unfamiliar familiar. We do this all the time in our interpretive programs. Slow it down in your virtual interpretation. And I know that sounds weird. I've been talking about how fast those programs often go. You can still move through. We can still cut out the boring stuff, right? Cut out the boring stuff so you can spend time on the stuff that's novel and they don't understand. Get close and visual, but also point out what they're supposed to be looking for. Remember that they're already multitasking, so catch their attention. These last two are the most important. This is personal interpretation. You need to be on the screen. you don't come to an interpretive program as a guide with a bag on your head, don't come to your videos with a bag on your head. don't be not there, okay? We're trying to make up for the fact that we are not with our audiences, so we have to be even more personal. That doesn't mean that you have to be an over-the-top character. It means that you've got to just be there. So here's some examples. My husband and I absolutely love to travel. Before we go traveling anywhere, I do a lot of research. I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. I'm trying to find out how many tourists are there. Maybe I don't want to go there. Maybe it looks too touristy. What are people wearing at that time of year? Is there going to be lots of steps involved? Where should I eat? I want to have a mental picture of where this place is so I can orient myself when I get there. So I watch a lot of videos. I found out that Expedia has travel videos. I didn't even know Expedia was still around. We used to, buy plane tickets and hotels through Expedia. And they were producing, or still are probably, producing travel videos that they were a wonderful product that would talk about the highlights of the place, show people doing activities. They would show a variety of activities, family-friendly, night out, what to eat, things like this. But it was all voiceover. And so it felt very impersonal. It was still a good product. I still learned from it. But I didn't have a person there kind of helping me out. Now compare that with Rick Steves, who as a tour became so popular as a tour guide, then created his own show, and now he's a very strong online presence. Rick Steves is still your tour guide. All of those programs, he's there going, come on, let's do this together. Let's go see this place. We're going to go to this. And he is your guide throughout. It's extremely personal. There's hardly any voiceovers, there's a little bit of it. But he is constantly telling you, I feel safe going here. I'm going to bring you there. This place excites me. Come with me. The last one I think is probably the hardest. What I'm doing right now has been the hardest part for me in recording any video. I am the person behind the camera. I am always the person behind the camera. And through doing these videos and making sure that I'm being personal, I have to get out in front of the camera. I don't feel comfortable with it. It's something that I'm working through. Remember, I'm working through something every time I'm doing these videos. So that's what I've been working on quite a bit. What's the key to it? I just keep telling myself the key is just be me. Here's my advice for you. Be you. Even if the world seems like it's out to get you, which it probably is, there are peeps out there who get you, okay? Who get you. You keep putting your stuff out there, they're going to find you. You're going to find them. Somebody's going to get you.
So here's our list of ways to be personable during personal virtual interpretation. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to check out a couple videos that I really think are fantastic examples of pre-recorded interpretive experiences. One is nature journaling with California State Parks, and the other is Scottish History Tours, is Bruce Fumey talking about the Wallace Monument. So you can take a QR code, you can take a picture of these QR codes and bring you right to these videos. And I want you to look for some engagement strategies that were used in each of these videos that could not have been done with an in-person audience. And also, how did each interpreter make these pre-recorded experiences very personable? How did they do personal virtual interpretation?
Okay, let's spend just a couple minutes talking about each one of these videos. I'm going to start with the Scottish History Tours with Bruce Fumey taking us up to the Wallace Monument. It's like we're on a walk with him, isn't it? He's stopping at various spots along the way to catch his breath. If we were with him, it would be a chance to catch our breath. But he takes those moments to tell us more and more of the story that's developing. We're all very, very familiar with the style, doing in-person walks. All he's done in the virtual program is just taken out those gaps of time where he's not talking. Some of my students have also compressed time with a hyperlapse, so that's another option. Another one is just to cut it, right? Just to make those edits. Now, Bruce Fumey's style is this storytelling style. It really draws you in. He is emphasizing the different conflicts in the story, so you remember them. You remember the different characters. History is really complex. And is best through storytelling. But in that storytelling, he's also giving us things to ponder. What if this had turned out differently? he's pointing out where those conflicts are, and that's ear candy to us. We are drawn to hearing those conflicts. He's also adding some eye candy with the exhibits and the views and himself being on screen, things that draw our eye back to us. So he has this very strong guide leading us a view or angle to his stories. So it's like we're there experiencing the place. All right, well, let's talk about the nature journaling program with Ranger Rob. We're starting out in the nature center. We're getting a close-up look of the examples that are coming out in this journaling. Gets us all excited about it, right? And it's a very personal, a low-key moment, right? He's just walking us through this book. Then we go on the walk to go do this program. Along the way, we're seeing the landscape. We're put in the landscape. He's showing video of himself doing these things, and then also showing us really close up some novel items, and not spending all that much time on the common items, but then showing the work before, after, during. And so we get a hint of, this is a demonstration, right? So we get a really strong hint of how to do this nature journaling along with them. And it becomes very personal and very inviting. Both of these programs are what I would consider very low key. There's not a lot of flash, there's not a lot of graphics. They seem like they're going a little slowly, but in real life, both of these programs would take quite a bit longer. It would take at least an hour to take this trip with Fumi up to the Wallace Monument, probably more like doing a nature journaling workshop could take 1 to 2 hours of really enjoying that time. So you're getting a compressed look. We're getting rid of all that kind of loose stuff in the middle to be able to create a very personal, very low-key type of experience. It's like we're with that person in person. So you can have a mix in your videos of all of that. You can have a mix of those strategies that can only be done for virtual audiences, that compress time, multiple places, words and graphics, things like this. But you can also infuse it with this very personal touch of being there on screen, being yourself, welcoming people in, showing them things that may be unfamiliar to them, taking the time with them. Nikki, did you miss something?
You're right. There's another way to do virtual programs.
So far we've been talking about the difference between in-person interpretation and pre-recorded personal virtual interpretation. So let's talk about what's in the middle, which is Zoom, being live online. Well, Zoom is just an example. There's also Microsoft Teams, and Skype and FaceTime would be kind of fall into this, I suppose, as well. So what happens with a Zoom meeting, I'm sure you've all been on meetings before, but what happens is that you're not sharing the same physical space. You're still meeting across the computer, but you are sharing real time. So the interpreter can ask questions that the audience can participate in. The audience can also interrupt. The audience can also make reactions in real time and be in the chat in real time as well. So there's quite a bit of interaction that happens. So there are some activities that work really well, engagement strategies that work really well on Zoom meetings, some in-person ones that don't work on Zoom meetings, and some you can't do. Some virtual program, some pre-recorded engagement strategies you can't do on Zoom. Now let's talk about this other form of Zoom, which is called a Zoom webinar. In a Zoom webinar, the host mutes everyone else but the interpreter. Sometimes the host is the interpreter, and they passively listen until the host is done with the main part of the program, and then the host will either go to the Q&A section, because people are able to write in the Q&A section while the program's going on, and then that those questions are saved, or they can turn off the webinar and make it back into a meeting, and people can add comments in the chat and go back and forth with the interpreter. But otherwise, pretty much for the most part, what happens in a Zoom webinar is that the audience is passively listening. So that that interpreter's essentially planning that pre-recorded. They don't have this interaction going on yet. On Zoom, they don't have that. They have the opportunity to do a slideshow and share their screen, but they don't have the opportunity to go back and edit and add um, different engagement strategies because the audience has already seen the program. Now, just to muddy the waters a little bit more, let's talk about being live on social media. I don't have very much experience with other social media platforms, but a little bit on Facebook. I know it's not often done the same way anymore, but let's give a 1-minute primer on this because it is kind of interesting how it falls in the cracks here. So when the interpreter begins their interpretive program, the recording begins at 0, 0, 0. When the audience watches, they also start at 0, 0, 0. The interpreter might be 30 seconds ahead or 30 days ahead, and that program has been done. So the interaction with the interpreter and the audience is very, very minimal. The audience can respond using the comment section. They can add an emoji or a comment, and it comes in it's time stamped for where that audience member is on watching the program. So the first one came in at 1:36. That next one came in after the program was already over, so it's in a different spot in the timeline. And that interpreter could be totally done. So the interpreter who's doing the live program does not really have the ability to be on the other side of the camera watching those comments coming in. Even if they're using the selfie view, it's really, really difficult to see those comments coming in. So the interpreter goes into it going, okay, I'm not going to have any response and any interaction with the crowd. In that case, it's almost like a pre-recorded program, but they're being recorded and they can't edit the work after the fact. So in that way, it's much like a live in-person program because what you do is what you keep. You can either remove it or you can keep it, but it's you can't re-edit that piece after it's been done. So any mistakes you made, any awkwardness, you're stuck with it. So I do want to share with you that any of these live online streaming experiences, they're all on the computer screen. The people are not there in real physical space, and sometimes they're not even there in real time. They can always be recorded and watched after the fact. In fact, especially with things like live on social media, it's almost always watched after the fact. So there are engagement strategies that work better with Zoom and don't work on Facebook. There are some that work on Facebook and not Zoom. There are some that work on Facebook and not pre-recorded. There are some that work on Facebook but not in person. So these 3 different buckets, the in-person program, the live streaming program, which is kind of a hybrid program, and pre-recorded programs, there's a lot of overlap in the personality that you can bring in, being personal with your interpretation. And then each setting also has some opportunities that are not existent in the other ones. So here's a quick recap of what we've talked about today. Virtual interpretation brings programs to those who cannot be there in person. Additionally, virtual interpretation allows for experiences that are not even available to in-person audiences. We looked at the differences between in-person and virtual programs. We compared audience behaviors. We looked at engagement strategies just for pre-recorded programs. And we talked about how to reach beyond the screen by being personal.
Wait, Nikki, we haven't even begun to talk about... You're right, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of this information. So, for example, how about your organization of your virtual programs? It's almost reverse from your in-person program. How the purpose of your virtual programs needs to be more about context than it is about your content. And how do you keep up with the technical aspect of recording and editing, even as the gear gets cheaper and more user-friendly? These are some of the modules I'm developing for personal virtual interpretation. It does rely on you having a strong basis of what interpretation is already. So if you've attended the CIG class, that's perfect. Is it harder to deliver virtual programs than in-person programs? Well, that's up to you. You're comfortable doing in-person programs because you've been trained to. You can be trained to do virtual programs as well. Rely on the strengths you already have in interpretation and understand that this is a steep learning curve. Give yourself some time and space to be messy and to fail. Try by doing record, edit, post, analyze. Start with small projects and informal ones. Those early tries will build your KSAs, and you'll be amazed at what you can do. I'm very interested in hearing from you. What modules would be helpful to you? Drop me a line and email. So let me tell you a little bit about this process. This has been quite a long video for me. I typically talk about this information over Zoom, and I get the opportunity to have feedback with the audience. I can ask questions and they can have answers and they can interrupt me in the middle. On a YouTube program, I can't do that, right? There's that gap of time between when the delivery happens and when the audience watches it. So I had to come up with about twice as much information. But I've had a really great time playing around with these engagement strategies this time. Every time I do a video, I'm trying to learn something new. So this one is focusing on those engagement strategies and transitioning between different engagement strategies. Now, I don't know a ton about this. I'm working through this I'm learning as I go. I'm not viral by any means, but I learn something every time and I focus on something every time, and I'm building up my skill set and I'm building up my portfolio. This has been my costume for the past 5 days, and I am working with 2 actors who are definitely not ready for Hollywood. That's Otis, my grown dog, who sometimes plays my puppy, and my puppy is around here somewhere. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I'm looking forward to sharing my information with more interpreters so that we can build up interpretation on YouTube. There's a lot of other YouTube content creators out there that do an amazing, amazing job. I'm learning from them probably the same time you are. But I want you to know, when you come to me and start learning this stuff with me, we are literally in this together. Learning how to do this together and learning from our mistakes together. It's a messy process, but it's also a fun process. I hope you'll join me.
Marker!
And over the past few years, I've been